Good morning. This is the 16th session of Hilchot Shabbat. We are now talking about the Kiddush on chapter 273 of the shulchan-aruch. The rule that the shulchan-aruch speaks about here, and that refers to both the Kiddush of the night and of the morning, is En Kiddush Ela B'mkom Seudah. The Kiddush is valid only if it's done in the place where you have the meal, where you eat. And that rule can cause many difficulties to people already. The shulchan-aruch gives different scenarios. What happened if you did the Kiddush in one room and then decided to move to another room, or to move from indoors, outdoors is nice weather, or you went to a friend, he did Kiddush in his house, and then you went home to eat, do you have to say Kiddush again? And I've been in situations where people got nervous. We were invited somewhere as a group. There was Kiddush in the synagogue, but some members of the group didn't eat in the synagogue, and then they went to the place where we were invited to, and the Kiddush was delayed, and they were hungry, and they were thirsty, and got upset. This should not happen. But they felt, and Kiddush Ela B'mkom Seudah, I didn't eat there, so I didn't have the meal. I cannot drink or eat before the Kiddush. So there's a very simple solution to that, and it's written right there in shulchan-aruch in Saif Hey, Halacha Hey of chapter 273. He quotes the Geonim, had en Kiddush Ela B'mkom Seudah, אפילו אכל דבר מועט או שתה כוס יין שחייב עליו ברכה, יצא ידי קידוש במקום סעודה. It says, while the rule is true that you have to do Kiddush in the place where you eat, but even if you had something, whatever, davar mu'at, a small quantity, which the commentators say doesn't even have to be a kazait, or if you drank wine, for which you have to say bracha achorona, that fulfills the obligation of Kiddush b'mkom seudah. And the commentary here says, Olat Shabbat, it says, כל הנאמרות בש"ס, מהרי בשלא טעם המקדש במקום הקידוש או כשלא טעם כשיעור רביעית. All this discussion in the Gemara, what happens if you move from one place to another, from one room to another, etc., they all refer to a case where the person who did the Kiddush did not eat anything or did not drink revi'it wine, which is about 3 ounces, or even the majority of that. So, if you're in the synagogue and you heard Kiddush, and you know that the person who did the Kiddush drank enough wine, which is usually the case, the rabbi knows that, the person who does the Kiddush knows that they drink most of the cup, then there's no need to do the Kiddush again when you go home, unless you want to do it for others. But for yourself, you can eat and drink relying on this Kiddush, even if you go to a completely different place. Even if the Kiddush was in the synagogue and then you walked 3 hours to the next place, it's still called Kiddush B'mkom Seudah. You only have to do it once. You don't have to repeat the Kiddush again. Now, we'll talk later about the Kiddush of the day. The Kiddush of the evening is the real Kiddush of Shabbat, because then there is where we say Baruch Ata Hashem Mekadesh Shabbat, right? We speak about sanctifying or distinguishing the Shabbat. In the morning, we only say Borei Pri HaGefen. So in the morning, if you want to say Borei Pri HaGefen 100 times in 100 different places, no problem. In the evening, if you heard Kiddush at the Bet Knesset and you go home and you're alone, you don't have to say Kiddush again. If there are other people that you want to say Kiddush for, you can't say it again. Another important halacha that has to do with the meals of Shabbat, that also sometimes creates a problem for people. It's halacha that appears in the next chapter in shulchan-aruch 274, and he says this in Saif Dalet, in halacha Dalet, סעודה זו ושל שחרית אי אפשר לעשותה בלא פת. It says that the night meal and the morning meal, סעודה ראשונה and שנייה, cannot be performed. One cannot fulfill his obligation, of course, rabbinical obligation. We'll talk about it more, without bread. Now, we'll talk about it more later, but just have in mind this, that in chapter 288, in 14 chapters, the author of shulchan-aruch will say, Mi shemazik lo im yochal. In chapter 288, Saif Bet, halacha 2, she'adam shemazik lo ha'achila de'az'oneg hu shelo le'echol lo yochal. If one is harmed by eating, then for him the pleasure or the oneg Shabbat is not to eat, he should not eat. So This is even about the whole meal. If one doesn't want to eat at all, one is on a very strict diet, and he knows that every deviation would cause him to fall off the track, then he should not eat at all. I've been again a witness to discussion. When my sister was a teenager, she didn't want to eat anything on Shabbat. She didn't want to eat meat. She wanted to have pita with cottage cheese, and there were arguments and fights that was unnecessary. And I know of many families where this happens, where people say you have to eat bread, you have to eat meat, you have to drink wine. Not true. When you can eat and you want to eat, then you should eat. You should do it with bread. But if you don't want to eat bread, if you're on a gluten-free diet, either because of a diet or because you're sensitive to it, you have celiac, then you don't have to eat bread. And the opposite, you're not allowed to eat bread if it causes any type of harm or medical condition or even just a discomfort. So have in mind that all the meals of Shabbat, you only have to eat if you want to eat, and you only eat what you like to eat. Whether it's meat or fish, vegetarian, cheese, or not at all. So, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the halachot of the Seudot. We'll move to chapter 275, which speaks about dvarim asurim la'asot le'or haner b'Shabbat, that one cannot do certain things by the candlelight, shemayateh, because we have this fear that he will tilt the candle to make it burn better. So when tilting the candle, obviously, we're not talking here about a yortzeit candle or the paraffin candles that we use today, but rather about a receptacle filled with oil and a wick, and also not the floating wicks that we use today, but a long wick that sits in a lamp, sort of like the Aladdin's lamp. And with that type of candle, sometimes the oil doesn't flow smoothly into the wick, and there's this concern that if you sit there, you try to read or to do something, you're going to tilt the candle and cause faster burning. So this decree doesn't apply today because we have enough light at home. We are used to a state of affairs where there's always artificial light. When we talk about the time of the Mishnah, we have to remember that if you didn't light the candles, there was total darkness. There was one candle at home, 2 candles at most, because people couldn't afford it. It was expensive, spending money on oil for the candles. So the house would be dark. You had one corner where you could sit by the candle and read and do something. So they had this fear of if you don't have sufficient light, you're going to move it. Today, most households are flooded with light. Even if you have a timer that turns off lights, there's always one corner in the house where there's enough light. For that reason, we got accustomed not to adjust lights easily, and definitely not on Shabbat. So even if you have dimmers, so some people argue that a dimmer is like a candle that can be tilted on Shabbat, so you are not allowed to use it. So if you're really concerned about that, just cover it, but there's no problem with the reading or doing anything with a dimmer in the room. One solution that people found for using light on Shabbat is the Shabbat menorah, which is a very interesting device. It's a menorah that within an encasing that has an opening only on one side, and then you could swivel it, turn it around, and hide the light, and then go to sleep so the light doesn't bother you in the room. It's a very nice solution, but a bit expensive, but price tag I think of about $40 a piece. If you could afford it, why not? But it's a shame. It's like if you want it for more than one room, spending hundreds of dollars to place lights that you could use on Shabbat around the house is really not the ideal situation. What you could do easily without getting into any disputes about LED lights or electricity, which we'll talk about later, is either use a timer, and which will turn off the light at night, and you could turn it on again during the day, or a more simple, sort of mechanical solution. Put this. You could use a torchia with a lamp with an extension cable, and then just move the lamp into a place that like into the hallway in a way that it doesn't bother you. Very important to never try to cover a lamp with fabric. This is very dangerous. It could catch fire. But you're allowed to move the lamp. This is also confirmed by Haim Ovadia Yosef, who says that anything that is connected to the wall is not muktzeh. So you could move a fan, a heater, except for the heaters that beep when you pick them up. But you could move a convector, a lamp, anything that is connected to the wall, even when it's operating on Shabbat, you're allowed to move. One more halacha that has to do with candles on Shabbat. The shulchan-aruch says in chapter 276 that if a non-Jew lit a candle on Shabbat for a Jew, no one could use it. Even other people, even other Jews for whom that candle was not lit. But that halacha is different in our situation, because the shulchan-aruch speaks of a candle. Lighting the candle is melechet mav'ir. It's a biblical prohibition, while lighting a light bulb is a rabbinical prohibition. So if a non-Jew did it, we have what is called tartei de rabbanan, two rabbinical prohibitions, and one should not avoid using that light. Actually, you can actually tell or hint to a non-Jew that you need him to turn the light. Now, we'll talk more about the different types of light in the next next discussion. Have in mind that some people argue that only LED lights are the rabbanan, are rabbinical, while incandescent is biblical, and we will talk about it more in our next session. Have a great day.